What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, you're already telling by the title of this video, you know what's about to go down. And Cody, because going right before this episode said that this is the type of video that I thrive in, decided to give me the lead on this. So we're going to hop right into it, guys. Hopefully you take that as you wish. But anyways, we had some news coming out of the Commanders training camp this last week, and Colts fans in general were just taking the opportunity to rub it in to Commanders fans. And what is that news that you ask? Well, it's about Carson Wentz, and apparently there were some inaccuracy issues going on. It was so important that even Pat McAfee decided to address it on his show as well. And of course, you had a whole bunch of people coming out in support of Carson Wentz, saying he's been more accurate than what people think. And even Ron Rivera putting out a statement on August 7th at the beginning of the week saying Carson Wentz has shown some inaccuracy, but we're not overly concerned. Have we heard something similar to that, Cody? I feel like we have. I feel like we as Colts fans have heard that same spiel before. And then sure enough, what we gave it the benefit of the doubt and it came back to bite us. What is your thoughts on this issue with Carson Wentz?
Nope, because it's exactly what the trap we fell into last offseason. Now, Commanders fans, you guys have a little bit more of an opportunity to recognize the issues before we do. We didn't last offseason because Carson Wentz got hurt and we didn't really get the chance to see him as much in training camp. But unfortunately for us as Colts fans, Derek and I, especially me, I'll just say that right now. I got fooled by Carson Wentz last year. I thought he was going to be, really, really good. I thought early on, I was like, okay, like I think this trade is ending up to looking pretty good for the Colts. For a while there, it's not like he was like absolutely playing MVP levels, but like he was playing like a decent quarterback. And I was like, okay, as he continues to familiarize himself with this offense, as we get some players back from being injured, and all those things, like this team, eventually with Carson Wentz, he's going to start thriving a little bit more. He had a couple nice games as well to boot with that. And so I was like, okay, like he's our quarterback moving forward. And so, but really when it started going down the end, really the second half to the end of the season, I mean, yeah, like we talked about it came back to bite us in the butt. Now, again, people have said this, and it's true to some degree, as it wasn't all Carson Wentz's fault, right? I get that. I agree with that. But the guy that's leading the charge at quarterback has to elevate the players around him. And Carson Wentz, when it mattered last year, wasn't able to do that, right? I mean, it was so bad, in fact, that the Colts actually really just did not let Carson Wentz throw the football for many games. Derek, I counted 8 games last year where Carson Wentz had under 200 yards passing. That's absolutely insane. Like almost half the games he played last year, he threw for sub 200 yards. Like that is not starting quarterback material. And people will point to, oh, he didn't have the weapons, and Washington now has some weapons for him and things like that. Which I get to some degree, and maybe the stats will look a little bit better. Maybe he will get more of those big splash plays. But also I look at it as just like, guys, Carson Wentz, we've been down this road before. We've thought, okay, it was just the Eagles, right? It was just the Eagles organization, a bad organization, blah, 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 bad situation, all that stuff, and we didn't put enough, I guess, blame on Carson Wentz that he deserved, right?
And it don't matter what weapons you got if you can't throw them the football.
Exactly. And people always point to even like last year, like they're like, oh, T.Y. Hilton was a shell of himself. Well, I look at that and I say, well, T.Y. Hilton was open in that Raiders game. If Carson Wentz actually finds him, that's a whole different ball game there, and there's a lot of instances where Carson just missed guys. It's not like the receivers or the tight ends weren't getting open. It's like sometimes it was just Carson missing these guys, right? Now, sometimes he was, his team did fail him last year. I won't, deny that. Sometimes the offensive line wouldn't protect him, properly. But I'll just say this, like, don't Commanders fans, like, do not fall into the trap that we fell into thinking this guy can be a franchise quarterback. Do not fall into that trap. Speaking from experience, speaking from somebody who was in your shoes last year, Like, please don't buy the hype here, man. Don't buy the hype.
Don't buy it. Don't buy it at all. Listen, it goes beyond just missing freaking players, dude. There was a play this last week. Montez Sweat is running after Carson Wentz off the backside. Carson Wentz is scrambling, trying to get away. Montez Sweat is yelling, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. Carson Wentz runs out of bounds with the ball, losing yards. Yeah. Like, it's stupid things like that that make you think, okay, this guy just does not have it where it needs to be. Okay, we continue to keep talking about the numbers, how the numbers were pretty good last year. He had 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That's a good touchdown interception ratio while still being negative in almost every metric. Now, at the end of the day, Cody, you just said it, like how the Colts how multiple games Carson Wentz didn't even have 200 yards passing. There were times at the end of the season that Frank Reich, his mentor, the guy that used to coach this guy in Philadelphia, he would stop game planning around Carson Wentz. Think about that. Your head coach gave up on wanting to have you be the center stone of the team. Think about that. I don't care how great Jonathan Taylor is. When your coaches are blatantly ignoring keeping you as part of the initiative of the offense and are saying, okay, we'll let you throw the ball 20 times, but we're not going to game plan for you. Like, obviously they did in some degree, but they did not take the emphasis to help Carson Wentz elevate himself. And that tells you all you need to know. They did not think he could elevate any higher, or else they would have. So Ron Rivera has to deal with that now.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, the Colts were willing to move on from Carson Wentz even if it meant cutting him. They were so against bringing him back that they didn't have a plan B and they were fine with it. Like, that should tell you some stuff right there. The Colts, one of the most level-headed organizations over the last couple of years, right? There's been a lot of instability at the quarterback position, but you can ask, all the executives in the league, a lot of people around the league, they would say the Colts, they are a very stable organization. They are a very good organization for teams to come in, for players to come in and really thrive in. We've seen different players throughout the course of this Frank Reich, Chris Ballard era come in and really thrive in this system, right? Whether it was a year, whether it was 5 years, we've seen players do that. And so I said at the beginning of last season, Derek, I said, if Carson Wentz fails in Indianapolis, it is not an Indianapolis issue. It is a Carson Wentz issue.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. You can point all day to saying he didn't have the weapons, he didn't have this, he didn't have that. Well, at some point, he's got to step it up and make a difference,
Because Andrew Luck had none of that. Andrew Luck had none of that.
It mattered.
And then at the end of the day, now the Commanders are stuck paying Carson Wentz $25 million this year and gave us 2 second rounders for Carson freaking Wentz. And we now have Matt Ryan. So who played who in the end of all things? So listen, guys, I understand that, we as an organization are trying to move on from Carson Wentz. Again, we're not knocking Carson Wentz the person. We think Carson Wentz is a phenomenal person. We're just talking about the football player himself. And I know this is last season's news, but people want to keep talking about it. People want to keep mentioning that Carson Wentz is still a good quarterback. I need to see something first before you can remind me, because he has not been a good quarterback since 2019. And, he supposedly is now going into the best situation he's had since before he got injured, where now he's going with a great head coach in Ron Rivera. He's got a great offense. He doesn't have a great offensive line at the moment, but going into a stable team, we're going to see how that works out for him because, we like you said, and we've been saying it all along, we fell for the same trap. We tried to figure out the optimism. Commanders fans, if you watch this video, listen to what we're saying. We understand where you're coming from here. Do not fall into the trap and think Carson Wentz is going to be your long-term quarterback. It's just not going to happen. I promise you he's going to throw like 30 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. He's going to look okay, but at the end of the day, he's going to cost you some games because he just can't help but make a stupid decision by either throwing the ball left-handed or like tossing it to somebody who's not there, or running out of bounds and losing yards when he could have just thrown the damn ball away. At the end of the day, that's Carson Wentz for you. And I know people are like, why are you guys still talking about it? Well, it's because it was Carson Wentz. Okay. That's why. So at the end of the day, that's pretty much it. You got anything else that you want to throw in on this?
Just bad habits from Carson Wentz that he's not willing to fix, right? Talked about taking the layups, right? That's one thing that the Colts said they wanted to see from Wentz last year, and he just didn't do that for him a lot of times. And I'll just say this, Derek, and I've said this before, maybe off air. I don't know if I've ever said it like on air, but like, I don't know how as fans we survived the Carson Wentz experience last year. That's what I'm going to call it. It was an experience. It was a horror movie, man, in certain points. Like, it was terrifying, in certain points. I don't know how we handled him at quarterback and Eric Fisher at left tackle, because that was an absolute disaster.
If you want any indication of what I felt about this team and about Carson Wentz last season, just go watch the recap video I made after Jacksonville. Go back and watch it. I went back and watched it a couple weeks ago, and believe me, I felt so much hatred for how Carson Wentz and this team played at the end of the year. It was really, really, really bad.
Really bad.
It's terrible that you're right, that we even had to deal with that. And it does say a lot that, like you said, the Colts were willing to get rid of him in general. And now his former teammates are saying that, Carson was not a very talkative person. He was very introverted, just wasn't the same guy that Matt Ryan is about, being perfect and trying to be perfect and elevating his craft and everything. It's a blessing that we have Matt Ryan now versus Carson Wentz. And we haven't even seen Matt Ryan throw the football for Indianapolis in a regular season game yet. And I can already tell you it's going to be a more efficient offense ran this year with Matt Ryan than Carson.
Right. But it's like the thing that we're trading away, and the thing that will get Commanders fans excited is, you'll see some big plays from Carson. Like, we're not saying he's just going to be outright terrible, right? When he's good, he's good. When he's hot, right? He's on it. And he has some plays you're like, wow, only a handful of quarterbacks in the league can make that throw or do that play right there. But also at the same time, it's so like a wide range of emotions, which is why I think, Carson Wentz, when you talk about him, it's heavily debated, it's heavily talked about, it's heavily controversial, is because Carson Wentz is such a polarizing player, because when he's good, he's good. But he's also, when he's bad, he's really bad, and he's very infuriating. He is like a Jekyll and Hyde type of player when it comes to quarterback in some ways, where like he can just be, really good one game. Like we looked at that Baltimore game, for example, where he threw for over 400 yards, I think with 3 or 4 touchdowns. He was virtually perfect in that game. And then you go, talk about some of the other games during the end of the year where you're just like, what the heck happened, And I think that's going to be the thing that is going to infuriate you guys, is like some days Carson Wentz is going to look like that franchise guy, and other days he's going to look like, the third string quarterback on your team. It's just like, I could not handle it. I could not handle another year. And obviously the Colts couldn't handle another year of that experience. So good luck, Commanders fans, this year. Maybe you guys will find yourself in a year in our shoes, and maybe you guys will somehow swindle another team to take Carson Wentz from you and take all that. I don't think it's likely, but we'll see. But overall, guys, what a crazy trade that was. I still, from a Colts perspective, I don't know how we got what we did. I think we lucked out. So anything else, Derek, regarding this topic? I know it's going to be heavily controversial. I know we're going to have a lot of Commanders fans in here hating on what we're saying, and maybe even other fans as well that support Carson Wentz. But I think we're right on. We've seen it firsthand, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We just wanted to kind of just.
And you and I were part of that fan club too, man. When we first started this season, when it was, even in the middle of the season, when Indianapolis was beating teams like the Bills and the Patriots and things like that, we were still on the hype train of what this team could have been and what Carson Wentz could still be. But yeah, after how the season ended, it's just it's very easy to see why we were so upset by it. So at the end of the day, we'll leave it at that. But let us know your thoughts, guys, on the news that's been coming out of Commanders training camp about Carson Wentz's inaccuracies. Does it surprise you? Do you think that the criticism of it is unfair? But let us know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. And as always, guys, go Colts.